The great philosopher Kant said that human reason can never fathom the depths of the invisible realm of heaven, within which a presumable God is supposed to exist. That is true, but human reason is limited to man's senses, however. Man's mind can know what man's sensed reasoning cannot know, for man's mind and soul are heaven. The kingdom of heaven is within man. Therefore, man can know all things in the measure of the awakening of his own divinity, his own immortality, and his own oneness with God. The outer mortal self, or body of man, exists only to the senses of man. The inner, immortal, soul self of man cannot be seen, but it can be known. We cannot see knowledge, love, or imagination, but they are there nevertheless. We cannot see energy, which makes it possible to walk, talk, run, swim, work, and play. These things we cannot see are as much a part of a person as their arms and legs. So which then is real? The outer visible man who can die, or the inner invisible man within the visible man who cannot die? It is strange that man knows so much about everything, but so little about man. The intelligentsia of the world, its doctors, surgeons, biologists, anthropologists, and anatomists have written volumes about the man who can die, but they are strangely silent about the man who cannot die. Great universities have been founded to educate man about man whom man can see, but their curricula is strangely silent about such existent things as the mind and soul of man. Socrates tried to reason the soul into an admitted existence, but the invisible cannot be reasoned into being by the sensed brain. It must be known by the mind. All creating things begin in the thinking mind of God and extend from the light of God as transient light recordings of thought-imaged forms which man calls bodies of matter. Growth is the result of thought waves of light. Thought waves pulse. Living bodies breathe and pulse. They constitute the heartbeat of the living universe. They are mind-centered, whether they be the body of man, bird, insect, tree, or apple on the tree. All repetitive continuities are wave vibrations. The entire universal body is a vibrating one, but wave vibrations are deceptive. Humans fail to recognize the continuity of 1,000 life cycles as being continuous repetitions of each other simply because of the long time interval between each repetition. When human consciousness develops the ability to comprehend that rest periods between actions are not death, then death will have been conquered by knowledge, and those who thus comprehend will know that there is no death.
The time has come when human intelligence should realize that repetition and reincarnation are two words with but one meaning. Idea is eternal, but the unfolding of idea by thinking mind is eternally repetitive. Man is idea. Idea cannot die. Man's body manifests idea by eternally changing and eternally repeating. Bodies, therefore, cannot die, for eternal change, eternally repeated, is an ageless continuity which, like the mind of God itself, never began and can never end. This is what is meant by telling you that man is immortal both as to his mind, which is one with God, and as to his body, which is an eternal record of his eternal thinking. People seldom realize that every time one completely severs his sensed body from his consciousness in sleep or death, or partially severs it in meditation, he withdraws into his immortal self, which centers every cell of his body as well as his mind self. The entire effort of the long journey from body sensation to mind consciousness, which means God consciousness, is a continuous effort to recollect one's divine origin in order that one may manifest it. God is the silent voice which man hears within him strongly in times of deep inspiration or in times of grave danger. This is as true of the criminal as of the saint. They vary only in the measure of their ability to recollect their divine source. Life is eternal in mind, and therefore never begins or ends. Life in bodies begins in thought and ends in thought. Thoughts are wave cycles. Life in bodies, therefore, begins and ends in thought wave cycles. Life in bodies merely simulates eternal life in mind. Every created body is thought into existence. Bodies are, therefore, merely thought recordings, and that is as true of the whole universe of bodies as it is of one body. Your own body is the record of your thinking. You pulse it into being by the thought waves which spring from the fulcrum of your desire to manifest yourself. Whatever you think, that you become. Your thinking can build a glorious body and lead you to a high pinnacle, or it can drop you into a deep pit. God's eternally living universe of light is founded upon love. It is imperative that you realize this fact, for the inner light of your very being is love, and your very body is founded upon the light of love. The light of love is the only force in all this universe. It is impossible for bodies to live in the dark, and impossible for them to unfold without love. That which mind knows cannot be sensed. That which the body senses cannot be known. The mind can be conscious that it knows, but the body is limited to a vibratory awareness that it has sensation. Knowledge is solely an attribute of the mind. Sensation is solely an attribute of the body. Mind is static light, the one and only power source of this universe. Thus thinking, you see what man calls life in a new light. You see it as the manner in which God manifests the idea of light and eternal life by dividing his one idea into countless pairs of many seemingly separate ideas, for that is what vibrating light waves are. These waves of light emerge from their fulcrum zeros and disappear into them in endless repetitions forever and ever. The wave is an extension of heaven to earth and back again. The wave is a projection from the spiritual universe of rest to a resting point in the physical universe, and back again to the spiritual universe for renewal of power to repeat the journey. Another way of saying it is that the wave is an emergence from the static condition of rest through the dynamic condition of motion to the static condition and back again, or that it is an extension of cause through effect and back again through effect to cause. Between every pulsation of movement, there is a period of stillness, which divides every compression-expansion sequence. You can knowingly say that the power expressed in motion is not really in the motion, but is in the stillness which divides motion. If that is true, life itself, which is presumed to be motion, must have its source in eternal rest. If death is presumed to be non-motion, and life is dependent upon it to express life, The only possible conclusion is that life is two ways, both of which have their source in rest.
The time will come in the unfoldment of man when his inner sensory perception will equal his outer sensory perception. When that time comes, he will know that motion only seems but has no existence. Present-day man's senses do not permit him to perceive the simultaneously voiding motion which cancels out the one they do see. In our new Science of Tomorrow teachings are these words for a new law for tomorrow, which read, every action-reaction in nature is voided as it occurs, is recorded as it's voided, and is repeated as it is recorded. The time has come when unfolding man should recognize this fact and place knowledge and power in the Creator of universal bodies and not in the bodies.
Be still and know.
The hardest lesson that man must learn is that whatever he does to others, he is doing to himself. Natural law is inexorable. No man or nation can escape it.
People become what they think, and it is in the nature of pupils to think what they are taught, and that which they think, they become. Who among the greatest of the world's university-trained scientific scholars can tell how the dynamic universe of motion emerges from the static condition of rest, or how God constructs matter? Those secrets lie behind the curtain of invisibility, which the materially minded, sense-limited intellectuals cannot penetrate. No such curtain exists for the cosmic-minded illuminate. When you begin to think cosmically, you will advance rapidly if your desire is keen, but from the very day you begin, you will note increasingly greater power in your work and still a greater transformation of your personality.
Your capacity for joy and happiness may be measured by your capacity for grief and suffering. All of the knowledge in the world should not dehumanize you. Your knowledge will, however, balance all opposite emotions and thus enrich you for having experienced them, while ignorance will breed fears, worries, superstitions, and other unnatural emotions, which act as a terrible burden to your progress. Knowledge of universal law will give you courage to transform the greatest defeat which ever threatened you into your greatest achievement.
Sunshine in nature would be a calamity without shadow. Grief, suffering, loneliness, and kindred emotions are as purposeful in the divine drama of life as joyfulness, happiness, and like emotions are purposeful. And being purposeful, they are good. When any of our loved ones die, we rightly feel a great sense of grief and loneliness. All the knowledge in the world will not assuage that expression of emotion. This is as it should be.
No matter how great your knowledge of the unreality of death may be, no matter how strongly you may live in the spiritual world, you must not forget that you have a physical body, which manifests spiritual idea, and that you live in both the divided and undivided universe of cause and effect. To have so much knowledge of the undivided universe that it leaves you cold to the emotions of the divided universe is to hold yourself aloof from the play and renders you purposeless.
To live life, one needs to be strong in knowledge rather than in body. Strength of body is like to having a fine tool to do better work with, but no tool can produce work by itself, and a weak mind cannot order a tool to do masterly work. The most important contributions to the power and happiness in the world of man are knowledge and strength of character. Give of yourself, and you will discover all the power in all the universe is yours to give. Life is an eons-long journey to search for happiness. Happiness in man is an emotion that springs from love. To find happiness, man must find love. The journey of life is for the finding of love.
God is love. When you find God, you find love. When you find God, you find the kingdom of heaven within yourself, and all things else are added unto you.
Therefore, go forward with courage, knowing that in all the world there is only one, the universal one.